Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Over 50 and Flourishing. I am your host, Dominique Sachse, and today we are diving into a topic that's not only timely, but really transformative. Joining me is somebody who is truly making waves in the world of personal finance and mindful living. Her name is Jen Smith. Jen is the co-host of the highly acclaimed Frugal Friends podcast, which has more than 400 episodes and an astounding 6 million downloads. They are big time. Through her podcast, Jen and her co-host Jill are literally changing the way we think about frugality. But it's not just about pinching pennies. Oh, no. It's about becoming better stewards of our money, time, space, and our natural resources. With her background in financial journalism, yes, we got another journalist on the podcast, Jen has a unique ability to dig into topics that really matter, helping us to overcome, and yeah, I'm going to say it, impulse spending and reach our financial goals. I'm thrilled to have her here today to share insights and tips on how we can all do better and become financially free. So without further ado, let's welcome to the podcast, Jen Smith. Support for today's podcast comes from BondCharge. Their extensive range of premium wellness products will help you sleep better, perform better, have more energy, recover faster, balance hormones, and reduce inflammation. How? Well, the red light therapy face mask is the way that I use it for inflammation. In particular, for any eczema outbreaks, it really works well. Sore jaw, migraines, acne, even wrinkles and fine lines. Why? Because it helps to boost collagen and elastin production. If you just want to kind of lay back in bed and chill out and enjoy your red light face mask, knowing that you're taking great care of your skin, just go to bondcharge.com/over50 and use coupon code over50 to save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com/over50 and use coupon code over50 to save 15%. Today's show is sponsored by MIDI Health. There are great things that come with age, wisdom, experience, and knowledge, just to name a few. But if you're a woman over 50, it can also bring some less desirable things like hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain. All of these symptoms of menopause and perimenopause. Yes, hormonal transition is a fact of life, but it doesn't mean you've got to accept its symptoms as just another part of aging. The experts at MIDI Health understand what you're going through and they know how to help. MIDI Health is the only virtual care clinic for women navigating midlife hormonal transition. They support you with safe, effective, FDA-approved medications, as well as supplements, lifestyle coaching, and preventative health guidance. What's more, all their services are covered by insurance, and they're conveniently accessible through telehealth visits and 24/7 messaging. If you're over 50, use all that wisdom you've gained over the years and visit MIDI Health, because you deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. Dry skin, deeper wrinkles, crepiness. These are just a few of the visible signs of aging, something today's sponsor, OneSkin, knows all about. Treating the symptoms rather than the root causes of aging, well, that's long been the norm. Most skincare available on the market today is really designed to provide a temporary reduction in the visible signs of aging, addressing just the surface symptoms and not the underlying decline in skin health. That's where OneSkin comes in. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and active younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code over50 at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code over50. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Jen Smith from Frugal Friends, welcome to Over 50 and Flourishing. It's so good to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you. So just to let everybody know, it's you and Jill Sirianni. You guys both co-host Frugal Friends. Your background is financial journalism, and Jill's background, she's a licensed clinical social worker. So together, you two really tackle being frugal. And boy, what an important topic in today's day. I think, when we look at where we are with our fiscal climate and just the economy in general and inflation, people are looking for ways. And, you and I were having this conversation before we even started this podcast about whether you get to that point of frugality by force or by choice. And you were saying today it's kind of a combination of the two, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Usually it's getting to some kind of level of hopefully not rock bottom, but some kind of adversity. And then you have to choose to want to come out of it. And sometimes even when you choose, if you're not looking at the right methods or the methods are outdated, it can be really hard to break free and really hopeless. And so we're hoping with Frugal Friends and our book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke, that we're offering some of that hope in a fresh way.
Yeah, you are so in my lane and speaking my love language. I can't even begin to tell you. And I'm really grateful. I'm serious. I'm so grateful we're going to have this talk today. I have to share, I grew up with a Nana and, I told you, you're from Florida. I was born in Miami and she lived in Hallandale. And when I would go and visit her in the summer, she was Jewish and she would take me to a place called Shmata Row. And it was a place where everybody would kind of sell. It was like a flea market and you would bargain and you would hunt for deals. And my Nana was very, very frugal. She did well in how she saved and she was a frugal shopper and she only bought what she needed and she only bought if she felt like she got a good deal. And I have to say that those values were really instilled in me in a young girl. And to this day, I still love the hunt. I love the find. I love the bargain. And I don't think I've ever paid full retail price for anything. And I'm grateful for that. But I would say my fiscal journey has had peaks and valleys of too much spending and then finally dialing it down. So I talk a little bit about kind of your background and what led you to this place to be able to help people become more frugal and why it's so important.
Yeah. So my husband and I met in 2014 and got married less than a year later. And in that time, we didn't get to talk about our finances until we were already engaged. So, and the conversation went something like, he wants to pay off his student loans. And I really didn't. I had $50,000 in student loans. He had about 24. And I also had a car loan. And I didn't want to live the quote unquote best years of my life, last years of my 20s, living under a rock, trying to pay off this debt that I thought was inevitable. And it's really because I had tried to make a budget. I had tried to be, fiscally responsible, and just the methods weren't working for me. So I thought that I just wasn't going to be good with money like that, like debt free. So I had already written it off. He hadn't. And he really encouraged me and got me on board with the debt payoff. And what I thought was going to take 5 years after we started going and working together toward the same goal ended up taking us 2 years to pay off $78,000 of debt.
Wow.
And we worked really hard, and it's not a method I would recommend 100% for anybody else, but we did it. And it taught me a lot really quickly. And so Jill and I started the podcast. Jill was also working to pay off her student loans. We had these shared thoughts about personal finance, how it definitely was more of like a finance bro world, hard to understand. During our debt payoff, I had started writing about personal finance and had just been employed to write full time for a website. And so the podcast kind of came from this desire to help people learn what we were currently learning or had just learned about personal finance, not positioning ourselves as experts, but like as your best girlfriends, just sharing tips that we just found out, we just used, and they just worked for us. And so that has always been the ethos of the show. And it's transformed over 6.5 years of hosting to where we started helping people just save money, learn sales cycles, get the best deal, to trying to help people come out of this idea that to save money and to be financially responsible, you can't spend anything. Because it's either you're good with money by not spending, or if you spend money or you like to spend money, you're bad with money. And so we wanted to dispel that myth and create this community around spending money where it's not a moral failing, it's not irresponsible, but it's a skill. It's a skill that we are learning to get better at. And we're trying to not to go broke while doing it. We're trying to still buy things, trying not to opt out of capitalism altogether, but still really get what matters most. And that's usually the stuff money can't buy.
Yeah. No, that's beautifully said. And as you were telling your story, it just makes me think about how many young people are emerging in the workforce and they have this mountain of student debt. And they're probably thinking, how am I going to pay this off? When am I going to pay this off? When am I even going to start saving for my financial future? So I'm so curious, Jen, what did you learn in the 2-year, $78,000 payoff? What did you learn about money? What did you learn about you?
The first thing I learned is how to get your partner on board with your debt payoff. That is a question we get almost daily in my DMs or my email. And it really, for me, came from looking at what I want. Travis, my husband, asked me, what do you want personally? What do you want for our relationship? And what do you want for our family moving forward? Because all three aspects individually are important. And so when he challenged me to really consider that, because a lot of people don't really consider, like, what do I want for my future? And when I figured that out, we could reverse engineer how to get there together. And it came from a place of saying, like, yeah, if we take this detour for a couple years, we thought it was going to be 5 years, then the next 45 to 55 years will be so much easier. So is it worth the investment now for, 50 good years? And for us, it was, once we figured out what those years could look like. So that's how we got started. And that's the first thing I learned, is that you have to really honor your partner's desires and work together, not just for them to reach your financial goal, but so that you're reaching your value goals, your life goals. And those just will have a financial component. There's no getting around it. But that's the only reason why we want to succeed financially. And I also learned that spending nothing is miserable. I was not super happy during those 2 years. I found a lot of ways to get creative to get what I wanted. And mostly those were like time with friends. So that was a good thing. Like, it challenged me to get creative. And we talk a lot about that in the book. But I found that the best way to take my mind off of it was helping other people. That was really like what set me off and made it, gave me the internal drive to keep going forward. And so the other thing I learned was that we don't change because we're supposed to. We change because we value the outcome and the journey. And so I was changing, but I was miserable, and it wasn't going to happen another year. I was like 1 year in, I was miserable. I wasn't going to keep doing that for another year. But when I found something that gave me an internal drive to keep going, that wasn't like an external reward, like I get to go out to dinner every time I pay off one of the student loans, like that wasn't doing it for me anymore. I had to find internal motivation. I had to develop that and nurture it in order to keep going.
Did it make you realize, as I listen to you, I think the epiphany would be, wow, I rely so much on spending for joy. Spending equals joy. And now I'm having to completely redefine and reframe what joy is. And think about it. We've been taught this as children. We do it as parents. Gifts, parties, birthdays, stuff, right? Stuff equals joy. And now we're having to completely rework that model. That's hard.
Yeah, it's ingrained in us. And I talk a lot about how diet culture and the way we look at food has really affected the way we look at money, because food you consume, but also money allows us to consume products, right? And so we've talked a lot all of our lives about dieting and food, but not about money. So we just take something that's already familiar, that's already regularly talked about, and we inadvertently just transfer the same practices over to money. So we, reward ourselves with a sweet treat or something. Same way we reward ourselves with maybe a food item, but maybe it's a home decor item, or we just look at consuming as a success, as a treat, as what we're working towards.
Right. Real quick, before we cut to a commercial break, I'm so curious. During your 2-year diet, we'll call it that. Doing your 2-year diet, like, did you get your hair done at all? Did you get your nails done? I mean, things that we kind of consider basics, almost like necessities. Did you cut back on all of it?
I cut back. I maybe did it a few times, but I really went to an extreme place, and there were benefits and consequences, but during the whole time I was saying the ends justify the means. But now I believe that the ends don't justify the means, because the means are truly all we have. Like the end is death, So the means, and we
don't know when that's coming.
Right. So the means are just as important. So while we should look to optimize, our finances, and so that we can do more because of it, it's not the only thing that's important.
Yeah, good point. We are talking with Jen Smith today. She is one of the co-hosts of the Frugal Friends podcast, and we are talking about getting real with our money, getting smart with it, learning how to save, learning how to cut wasteful spending. And she's going to offer some real practical, tangible strategies for us to get started today to make some really smart fiscal decisions so that we can have a better tomorrow. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're listening to Over 50 and Flourishing. Support for today's podcast comes from BondCharge. Their extensive range of premium wellness products will help you sleep better, perform better, have more energy, recover faster, balance hormones, and reduce inflammation. How? Well, the red light therapy face mask is the way that I use it for inflammation. In particular, for any eczema outbreaks, it really works well. Sore jaw, migraines, acne, even wrinkles and fine lines. Why? Because it helps to boost collagen and elastin production. Super lightweight on the face, does not get hot, only 10 to 20 minutes each day. You can use it when you're doing stuff around the house, or if you just want to kind of lay back in bed and chill out and enjoy your red light face mask, knowing that you're taking great care of your skin. Just go to bondcharge.com/over50 and use coupon code over50 to save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com/over50 and use coupon code over50 to save 15%. Today's show is sponsored by MIDI Health. There are great things that come with age, wisdom, experience, and knowledge, just to name a few. But if you're a woman over 50, it can also bring some less desirable things like hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain. All of these symptoms of menopause and perimenopause. Yes, hormonal transition is a fact of life, but it doesn't mean you've got to accept its symptoms as just another part of aging. The experts at MIDI Health understand what you're going through, and they know how to help. MIDI Health is the only virtual care clinic for women navigating midlife hormonal transition. They support you with safe, effective, FDA-approved medications, as well as supplements, lifestyle coaching, and preventative health guidance. What's more, all their services are covered by insurance, and they're conveniently accessible through telehealth visits and 24/7 messaging. If you're over 50, use all that wisdom you've gained over the years and visit MIDI Health, because you deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. Welcome back, everybody. My guest today is Jen Smith. She has a podcast called Frugal Friends that she co-hosts with Jill Sirianni. And she also has a book out that's called Buy What You Love Without Going Broke. That for some can seem like an oxymoron, but we're going to make sure that's not the case. And sometimes we've got to redefine what it is that we love, right? And why are we loving things over maybe people or experiences. And so I'm so curious, Jen, as you wrote this book, you had already been through your fiscal diet. You had already proven to yourself. And by the way, kudos to you and your husband for being on the same page, because I've got to say that's number one for success in anything, even if it's a weight loss or a health plan. If both people are on board, it is far more likely to succeed than if one person is trying to toe the line. So I think it's great that you had a husband who said, we're going to do this, we can do this, and you hopped on board. But, let's talk about first getting, because if you're by yourself, it's only you. If it's you and a spouse or a partner, both people have to get on board. Where do we start to kind of grab our reins and get a hold of this?
Well, the first part is definitely mindset. And I know sometimes that sounds a little woo-woo. We don't like the abstract. We want the concrete tips. But in order to execute these concrete tips, you got to come at them with the right mindset. And so for a lot of us, we, are conditioned to think spending is bad and that we're bad people because we love to spend, or not bad people, but just, I don't want to waste my life, not spending money, not having fun, because spending is joy. Well, reframing that into spending is not an identity. Spending is not irresponsible. It's a skill. And so you can get better with any skill. And some people, they're born naturally better at a skill, but if they don't practice it intentionally, then they're not going to get better at it. And you can. So realizing that spending is a skill and that the way we improve it without going broke is to identify what you truly love, what you value. And so for that, we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's this really well-known hierarchy with the physiological stuff on the bottom, safety right above it. And traditional personal finance advice says, if you're good with money, you only focus on those things. You only spend on those bottom parts. The problem with that is, even if those are the only things in our budget and the only thing we're quote unquote trying to spend on, if we ignore the rest of the hierarchy as, human beings, we don't just forget about the rest of those needs, those higher needs. We will still spend on them, even though we have guilt and shame spending on them. And usually it's going to be on things like impulse purchases and stuff that is getting around the actual need, not truly meeting it, but it's a poor substitute. And so those higher needs are relationships, whether it be with friends or romantic relationships, self-esteem, feeling of achievement, and then self-actualization, the feel like you're living into your fullest potential. And so from those, we found that there's 4 that most people are most important to most people. And those all happen to start with the letter F. So it's family, friends, faith, and fulfilling work. And so it's always a combo of those. And the way people show up and the way people interpret those is different. But so it's a good baseline to start to look at those 4 things and think, how do I want to show up? How do I want to spend in each of these things? And how can I improve my spending so that I can get more of these things? And so once you start using your values, your higher needs as your North Star, and you know that spending is it's a journey, it's a skill that you can get better at, you're not going to be automatically good at it, then you're at a place where you can start taking some of the concrete action steps.
I find it's really a great reality check. Sometimes we just don't know. We're so used to, everything's on our phone these days, right? So we've got Apple Pay, you're double clicking and this and that, and you don't see it until you get on your credit card statement. And then you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And then you see the pie chart and you're really like, whoa, okay, so I'm spending a lot on food or I'm spending a lot here. Do you think the first step is to get kind of a financial blueprint and to see overall what's going on before you can really hone in and make some changes?
Yes. So many people say, start with a budget. The budget is going to be your solution to your problem. And we've just seen over and over and over that budgets are not the solution to the problem. They are a tool to reach a financial goal faster. They're not a solution. And if you don't approach it with the right information or the right format, then you're going to fail it because it was destined to fail from the beginning. And it creates this guilt and shame cycle of make perfect budget, fail, feel guilt over and over. So what we say is before you make a budget, to make a 90-day transaction inventory. So go back through 90 days of transactions,
right?
Whether it's a holiday season, birthday season, there is no wrong time to do this, no wrong season. 90 days will really give you a good picture of what all of your purchases could be in a year. Not perfect, but good idea. And then you can look through those transactions and see, what was I doing on this day when I made this? What was I feeling? What did I want to get out of it? We avoid the why questions because why questions put us on the defense and make us feel very judgmental. And we're looking at this with a mindset of neutrality. We want to really get to the reason behind the purchase, not attack ourselves for making the purchase. And you'll start to see patterns like, I always get a Starbucks when I go to Target, or I always hit up happy hour on Friday. And then you can start to ask yourself like, okay, what am I getting out of the coffee from Target? Well, sometimes it's a little treat because it's the only time I can get away from my children and it's my escape. Other times it's just habitual, automatic, because you are trying to escape your kids so often. So the others, like happy hours, are you networking for work? Are you just hanging out with friends? Or is it just like an automatic thing? So the same transaction made for different reasons can be values aligned or not values aligned. So the problem with looking at a budget first is that you only answer the how much problem. When you look at a 90-day transaction inventory, you can get to the what problem. What am I buying? And that's a better solution than just giving it a number and saying, you can't spend more than X on X.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Jen, because in that discovery, and a lot of women confess and will say, okay, I'm an emotional spender. I know it. When I'm feeling down, when I'm sad, when I'm, not having a great day, my relationship isn't working, I go and I spend to feel better. So you may find those patterns in there. And, I like how you said, take the emotionality out of it. Don't beat yourself up. How do you do that? If you are seeing a pattern and acknowledging there's some emotional spending in there, how do you grant yourself that kind of grace and forgiveness to at least have awareness, but not lose yourself over it and then move past it?
Starting with questions that do not have a why in them. Why is a fine word, but in language, sometimes these things have connotations that are they just traditionally put us on the defensive, right? So we want to change our language and how we speak to ourselves. And so that includes questions of, okay, what am I trying to get out of this week? What season am I in? How do I want to, look at this or that? So it starts with those questions just on a day-to-day basis. We stop asking ourselves why questions so that then we can head into this very anxiety producing event like doing a transaction inventory. Head in with more neutrality, but we have to practice curiosity about ourselves, not being judgmental.
Yeah, that's so important, Jen. And we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I really want you to walk our audience through how they can practically today start to make real change in their fiscal lives, how they can not only curb spending, but make good purchases that they can feel good about, as well as start saving for the future, getting debt paid down. So many people are living paycheck to paycheck right now, and they are deeply concerned about being able to pay for their children's college in the future, being able to care for themselves in the future. So help tee us up for success. We're listening to Jen Smith. She is the co-host of the Frugal Friends podcast, also the author of Buy What You Love Without Going Broke. And who doesn't want to do that? We'll be right back after this. Dry skin, deeper wrinkles, crepiness. These are just a few of the visible signs of aging, something today's sponsor, OneSkin, knows all about. That's why I love their topical supplements, the OS1 Body, OS1 Face, OS1 Eye. They actually help your skin feel and behave younger as you age. Treating the symptoms rather than the root causes of aging, well, that's long been the norm. Most skincare available on the market today is really designed to provide a temporary reduction in the visible signs of aging, addressing just the surface symptoms and not the underlying decline in skin health. That's where OneSkin comes in. They also have great travel-size products as well. I know it's the season, so if you're looking for that, I highly encourage you to check them out. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and active younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code OVER50 at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code OVER50. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Hey, if the temperature is hot where you are, kind of like it is where I am, that doesn't mean swimsuit season is over just yet. And if you have been unhappy with how you've looked in your swimsuits, let me tell you about Miracle Suit. It is the perfect swimsuit. It is the one and only suit you need to get. Why? Because it absolutely perfectly flatters your body. It will make you look and feel the best ever because it has wonderful high quality sculpting swimsuits that are designed to last, which means you're going to look great in it. It's not going to fade. It's not going to pill. It's not going to tear apart. You will use it for many, many more summers to come. And you'll be grateful that they use the Miratex fabric because that's like giving a great hug to your body. Miracle Suit is my new go-to for swimwear, and I can't recommend them enough. I do have a special limited time offer just for my listeners. Get 25% off when you order today with my exclusive promo code OVER50 at miraclesuit.com. 25% off. That is an amazing discount. This offer won't last long, so order now with code OVER50 at miraclesuit.com. Welcome back. Jen, I am so enjoying this conversation with you. I'm sure my audience is now sitting there, some with pen and paper ready to write down notes, some probably bookmarking this podcast or downloading it so they can listen to it again. We before the break, we talked about a lot of scenarios that people find themselves in today, and they are deeply concerned, or they are reaching that point where they realize I've got to change my patterns and my ways in order to have a better tomorrow. Just like you and your husband did when you decided to get your debt paid down, and you did $78,000 in 2 years. Wow. Commendable. I would really like you to help, and I'm sure you spell this out in your book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke. How do we set ourselves up? Kind of tell us where to start in this whole process, because boy, this can seem like a mountain to climb.
Absolutely. So we talked about finding your values and using your values as your North Star, and that's great. But we don't live in a vacuum. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes up that maybe is not aligned with your values, but you also can't avoid spending on it. Or there's marketing that really trips you up. Or like you were saying with the emotional spending, sometimes internally I trip myself up.
Sure.
So there's all these things that we have to educate ourselves about and build boundaries so that we can say no to the things that are not aligned with our values. And so the first thing is we look at the different root causes for impulse spending. And so it's very easy for me to, like, when I can identify marketing and know I'm being marketed to, especially like on social media and stuff, like I can say no, like I get it.
Yeah.
But if there's something in me that is not fully on board with me, I can be really tripped up. So if I'm having like a bad day where I feel like I don't look good in any of my clothes, it's just not a good day. Like my kindergartner is kicking and screaming on the way to the gate at kindergarten. I am more susceptible to buying things to make it easier to love myself. So whether that is makeup, hair products, clothes, any of that. And so the first thing, you can't you can't spend in alignment with your values if you don't value yourself first. There's nothing you can buy that will make you comfortable with yourself, that will buy your love for yourself, any of that. And so that's the first way we trip ourselves up and impulse spend. Another way is through external things that kind of happen to us. So your stress, your emotions, the habits that maybe spending on something is strategic and good for a while, and then it becomes mindless and it switches from values aligned to not values aligned. So for stuff like that, we cover several more in the book, but for stuff like that, we have to develop healthier coping mechanisms and healthier ways to meet those needs. So we have like something we call the impulse intervention. I just named it that because I like alliterations. But it's essentially,
you're a journalist, of course you do. I feel you.
I didn't think about that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
So having things like healthy coping mechanisms that are also around the same quote unquote size as the nature of the impulse spending. So if I'm impulse spending a lot at farmers markets or Target, or if I'm going to an event to spend money, then having different things you can do that will not require money but are of the same size. So activities you can do with friends. A lot of these bigger things, the real aim is relationships. Sometimes it's meeting boredom, but it's usually relationships. And then all the way to the small things like scrolling Amazon in bed or scrolling social media and getting influence. So you're not going to get up and you're not going to get up and go to a free event or go for a run, if you're in bed. That's not the same size of coping mechanism. So playing a game on your phone or creating something in Canva, which is a free graphic design app. So it's going to have to take time to kind of retrain yourself to know when your purchases are trying to get at something that money can't buy or a poor substitute for the thing you're really at. But when you start with those cover a large swath of impulse spending opportunities.
You know what I really love, Jen, and I have found myself doing this as I try to cut back as well. I love things like Pinterest, where you can go on and basically look at ideas and then take what you have and repurpose them. So maybe it's just a refresh. If you're, tempted to buy something for your home, maybe there's a new way to re-accessorize the home with what you already have and move things around a little bit. Or the same thing with your wardrobe. Try pairing things differently, and then suddenly you've got a new look. So it gives you that instant gratification of something is different, but I didn't have to spend money to do it. And then there's also that self-esteem that comes from the self-control that comes from that.
Yeah. As humans, we have this complexity bias, which is a documented bias that we think adding something will bring in the solution, even when it's obvious that what you need is to take away or to reorganize.
Yes.
Yeah. But just as humans, we have this complexity bias that thinks adding will solve. And marketing takes advantage of that every second of every day. But if we just practice more of the rearranging or the taking away before we add, it's not that we can never add. It's not that we can never buy or shop, but just placing a barrier that says, okay, first I'm going to try and rearrange. Then I'm going to try and simplify before I automatically go and buy the solution to my problem.
That's great. And I have found in my own personal experience that brings about such a wonderful sense of ownership of what I really like, really use, really need. So I've gotten real with things. I feel a sense of peace by getting rid of what's not there. So it's not like staring at me, making me feel bad for purchasing it in the first place. So now somebody else gets to use it, gently loved clothing. And it does. And then once it's clean and neat and organized, you don't want to overclutter again because you don't want that past feeling. I think that's a big help to get started.
Yeah, we so often we don't define what is complete or what is enough. And so that's how we can come to consume, consume, consume. But when you are at this place where you've taken away and you've organized and it feels complete, then you can draw that line in the sand that says, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is it. This is the number of shirts that feels good to me. This is the number of this. Like this is how everything looks good. And so if I want to add something, it's going to be because I'm replacing something. And it takes time
Mm-hmm.
to get there, but it is an empowering feeling to
Yes.
know that you're using 80% of your items and 80% of your clothing instead of the normal like 20%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it is a great feeling. It's getting real with what you have. And I'm so curious too, because I think a lot of people are not only trying to be more mindful with their spending and be better at it and smarter with it, but at the same time, they're trying to find areas where they can truly cut back and save some money to tackle a myriad of things. It's either paying off credit card debt, paying off student loans, or just saving for the future. So how do you find that balance and that ratio to know that you're actually saving enough to get you somewhere to kind of keep up with the rate of inflation?
Yeah, if real cuts need to be made, we like to make them as efficiently as possible. And so we like to use the 80-20 method for saving. So we like to first focus on the 20% of actions that are costing us 80% of our monthly expenses. The other 20% or the other 80% of our, actions that are only doing 20% of our expenses, those are still important. Those are the useful many, but we want to
Mhm.
start with the vital few because that feels less overwhelming. When I tell you what they are, they might not seem less overwhelming at first, but in the long run, they are. And those are three things. They are housing, transportation, and food.
Correct.
So for us, food is the lowest barrier to entry. If you can really start in one place, that's the place to start with some meal
Mhm.
planning and meal prepping. And I think the biggest thing that gets people with those is they think they have to like meal prep like a fitness model on every
Right.
Sunday, have
Right.
these
With the
beautiful
Tupperware
perfect.
stacked.
Yes. Absolutely not. We're talking manageable meal prep. Sometimes, I mean, I love buying frozen vegetables. They're already
Mhm.
pre-chopped. They
Yes.
come out of the oven roasted just like fresh. They don't go bad as quickly.
Mhm.
So finding these shortcuts to your meal prepping and prepping for meals that are very easy to execute. Because Sunday Jen, who planned all these beautiful dishes for the week, is not the same as Wednesday Jen, who is tired
Yep.
and does not want to microwave a cup of soup. Like
Mhm.
or that's maybe the only thing I could do. Because if it's any harder than that, I'm getting takeout.
Right.
So making sure you prioritize. If lowering your expenses is the priority, then we don't have to go with junk food. We just have to make sure we have the easiest options because anything cooked at home is going to be healthier than going out 90% of the time. So
Mhm.
that's the first place is eat at home and don't waste any food. Don't throw any money in the garbage.
Yeah.
And then we look at housing and transportation. So one way that, seriously, the easiest way to save money, I think, is just by buying used cars. There are very
100%.
few, yeah, there's a very
Mhm.
few select people who buying new is good for, like
Mhm.
car rental companies and other businesses. For humans, for regular people, buying used, 3 to 5 years, everyone's worried about safety and features, but buying 3 to 5 years saves you around $200 a month over buying the same car brand new. And
Right.
that's taking into account higher interest rates. It's just the cost of new cars is so much higher than used. So on average, with the same loan term, you're going to be saving $200 a month just by buying a 4-year-old car versus a brand
Mhm.
new car. And that's, I mean, if you're a 2-car household, that's saving $4,800 a year
Yeah, it's big
every
money.
year that you own your car. Right. And that you will never buy that many lattes in a year. to save that much, right? And that's one decision that you make one time every 5 to 8 years versus sometimes daily or weekly decisions to buy food.
And I think people caught on because the used car market has gone gangbusters. You know, people have cut through it and they see it for what it is. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. And a lot of people will use that though as an excuse to just buy new because the prices are so close. But the survey that we looked at is from 2003, possibly 2004. And so this is up-to-date information. So the saving $200 a month is still current, even with how much more expensive used cars have gotten. And that's why one of the things we say is it's okay to have a car loan. I know it used to be you could get a car for like $5,000-$6,000 and it would be a good quality car. And those days are just gone. So if we're gonna use a car loan, let's use it wisely and let's really look at our month to month and annual overall savings, not just what the salesperson is saying, you know, like it's basically the same price. It's, you know, it's the same, but let's really do the math. So, and then for housing, a lot of people can't control those decisions. You maybe make a housing decision once every 5, 10, 15, 30 years. It just depends. But if you are looking to buy a home, upgrade a home, do renovations, the biggest thing is to get out of this mindset that, oh, I'm having another baby. I need a bigger home. Or my countertops aren't quartz. We need a kitchen renovation. Like getting out of this social media perfection aesthetic, like mindset that we've grown accustomed to. There's beauty in being normal. So look at what you value. If quartz countertops are really in your values, like cool, get it. But if being a place where people can come and you want to create a more inviting space, then that's a renovation investment you should make. But if it's just because you're insecure about how your house looks, then that's a different reason. You can't buy enough renovation to feel confident in your house. So you, again, have to look at your values and make renovation decisions and home buying decisions that align with that. Because, again, a realtor will tell you that a $400,000 versus a $450,000 home, that's not a lot. That's maybe $300 a month. But again, we saw with the car that for, you know, it adds up. $400 a month extra is almost $5,000 a year more. And that's money you're not going to be able to use for a vacation or to invest for retirement or to pay for your kids' college. Like that's just money you're not going to be able to use. So really being intentional with your values in those big purchases. And then you can buy as many lattes as you want. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned house and it made me think too, you know, interest rates, if they start coming down, maybe refinance your mortgage, take advantage of the lower interest rate out there, or even protesting property taxes. A lot of people forget to do that and their house gets appraised higher and higher, and you can petition and protest with your local tax office. I know I've had a lot of success in doing that. Maybe not every year, but there have been some years where I have. So I think that there are these arenas where sometimes we forget or we let time slip, and we can lose out on this potential savings. So once we've moved past these big three, so we've got food, transportation, and housing, and we're really being smart with the biggies. What do you recommend with the, let's say, the smaller tier stuff? I mean, do you like, I know I personally like outlets and discount places. I don't like paying full price for anything. Do you recommend maybe apps to help with deals? You know, when you do decide to spend, how do you recommend spending wisely and not wastefully?
So you might cringe when you hear me say this, but I try, if it's something that I want and I really want it, I will usually buy it full price first. And that's because sales are often enough of a justification for us to buy something that we don't really need. And if we commit to buying it full price once, then you might decide that you don't want it at all. And that will save you way more money than any sale savings will save you. So it's not always a thing I do, but it's always a mindset I carry with me. Because stores would not offer sales if it didn't benefit them in some way. They are a tool to elicit more impulse spending. Maybe you're going in for something you do need on sale, like back to school shopping just happened, and I took advantage of the tax-free week and the sales at Target to get all of my son's back to school stuff. I absolutely did that. And I did not pay full price the first year for that either, because I knew we needed it. But it's usually you're going in there for the thing that you need for a sale, and you walk out with something extra just because it was on sale.
Yeah.
And so if you know you're spending and you know yourself enough that you're not going to do that, then taking advantage of sales is great. It's like credit card reward points. I love credit card reward points. I take so many vacations using points. But you have to be able to pay off your card in full on time every month. Otherwise, you do pay for those points. But the bank knows that most people will not do that. And so that's how they make so much money offering those things. And so like I feel so good paying off my card in full every month and still getting those points. But it's the same with sales.
Yes.
You have to.
No, I was going to say, I'm sure that you believe everybody should pay off their credit cards in full monthly and not carry revolving debt.
Yes, absolutely. No brainer. Credit card debt is the highest interest rate you'll pay, and it will get you behind on every financial goal that you have. So that is definitely the first reason why we values-based spend, is to cut down our impulse spending on credit cards and to pay those things off, because that will inevitably, that one thing will get you more of what you value. Just doing that one thing.
Yeah, it's a big one. Once we identify our list, right? We have our values, we have our core list. Do you, and I'm going to pretty much assume I know what this answer is, but do you want everybody to kind of go in when they have to shop, go in with a list of things so that you don't get caught and kind of triggered by the sale or the this? It's like the eye candy here and the there, and that you stay laser focused on what you need and you don't wind up cruising down aisles where you don't need to be.
Yes, a list is super helpful. I will also shop online. I do all my grocery shopping on an app and then just pick it up so that I don't put myself in a position to be in there to deviate from my list.
That's
so
good.
I just take it a step further. But yeah, if I do have to go into a store, I do have a list on my phone in my notes app, and I stick to it as closely as possible.
Any other practical takeaways, Jen, before we kind of button it up to help people get smart with their spending so that they can buy what they love without going broke, according to your book?
I would say maybe this is a long-term kind of like change that you can make so that values-based spending becomes easier. In the last section of our book, we talk about simplifying your environment. Studies have shown that a more cluttered environment translates to a more cluttered brain. And that's not just external environment, but that's internal environment too. So the mental load that you're carrying, maybe your schedule or your responsibilities or all of these things. And we know that you don't have to become a stoic. Like you don't have to give up everything, but being really aware of your season and simplifying your belongings, your routines, what you're doing mentally and physically throughout the day can really help you think more clearly. It can take away a lot of the decision fatigue that comes with making spending decisions. So it's a tangible thing that seems peripheral to spending money, but does have a direct effect on it. Because a lot of the times when you're impulse spending, you're in your house and you're trying not to look at all the clutter and the dirty dishes and the things on your counter. And that just translates to spending money. So the easier it is to enjoy and love and feel supported by your environment, the easier it is to make these spending decisions.
I love it. And when you're feeling that impulse and you're scrolling and you want to spend, put down the phone and start cleaning and decluttering and organizing. And therefore you've saved yourself money and you've made your environment a better space so that you'll spend less. So it's kind of a win-win. And I love that because I'm all about organization and tidiness. So again, when you're speaking my love language, Miss Jen Smith. Thank you.
And you can do a lot in 10 minutes too. So don't get overwhelmed with a messy house. You can do a lot in 10 minutes.
Yes. All good practical tips. Jen, if people want to listen to you and your partner, Jill, there is the Frugal Friends podcast and they can get great tips. You guys put out content weekly. Is that right?
Twice a week. Yep.
Twice a week. Very good. Okay. And you can always buy Jen's book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke. But Jen Smith, so glad to have you today. Such an important conversation. Not just in today's times, but anytime, because even if things are great and even if the economy is great, you don't want to lose your discipline. And this gets us locked in. And so when we're rolling, when we're high on the hog, we're getting smart and we're saving even more. So I love it. And thank you so much for just these applicable and practical steps.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a great conversation.
Agreed. Thanks, Jen. Well, I think we all got some takeaways from this one, and I'm grateful to have her. I hope you've got some practical steps you can put into play today to make some differences in your life and the life of your family so you can be healthier as a unit and work together in tandem to not only spend better, but to save better. Love that. I'm also going to be on their podcast as well, so I'm excited about that. We'll share the information and the details on that when it comes out. But in the meantime, if you would do me the kindest favor, if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Give it a thumbs up if you like today's conversation. Feel free to leave a comment in the comments below what you thought, what you would like to see maybe in future podcasts. We always like to look through those and get some great ideas. So I thank you in advance for that. And if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, again, another favor, rate, review, subscribe, and share. I just ask you to do that because it really helps to grow the community here with Over 50 and Flourishing. The more people looped in, the more we can affect positive change in this realm, in this beautiful midlife space so that we can live our best, healthy, most fiscally wise lives possible. So thank you for being with me. Can't wait to have you next week. And until next time. Hey, if the temperature is hot where you are, kind of like it is where I am, that doesn't mean swimsuit season is over just yet. And if you have been unhappy with how you've looked in your swimsuits, let me tell you about Miracle Suit. It is the perfect swimsuit. It is the one and only suit you need to get. Why? Because it absolutely perfectly flatters your body. It will make you look and feel the best ever because it has wonderful high quality sculpting swimsuits that are designed to last, which means you're going to look great in it. It's not going to fade. It's not going to pill. It's not going to tear apart. You will use it for many, many more summers to come. And you'll be grateful that they use the Miratex fabric because that's like giving a great hug to your body. Miracle Suit is my new go-to for swimwear, and I can't recommend them enough. I do have a special limited time offer just for my listeners. Get 25% off when you order today with my exclusive promo code OVER50 at miraclesuit.com. 25% off. That is an amazing discount. This offer won't last long, so order now with code OVER50 at miraclesuit.com.